the mayor is this sort of US system, isn't it, that they've brought in here, where the mayor has an enormous amount of power. And I can remember back, it's a decade ago or so, when our show was on and they had this big vote, and it was actually a tiny minority of people in Bristol that actually said, yes, OK, we'll have a mayor, after this quite, short but very forceful campaign in the press, and the BBC, ITV, and the Bristol Post, saying, this is going to be a great idea.
Well, that's right. And, of course, Mayor Ferguson, who was the first winner of the mayoral role, was one of those who was pushing very heavily, why don't we have a mayor? And I've never been in favour of elected mayors of this kind. I think the problem is that you've got a problem of legitimacy from the get-go. Previously, the leader of the council was the leader of the biggest party, and you knew that they had a certain amount of support within that party to be the leader of the party. With an elected mayor...
Yeah, they could be unseated by the party.
Yeah, they could indeed. And Ken Livingstone, for example, initially came to power as not Mayor of London, leader of the GLC, after an internal coup within the Labour Party after an election. Now, you could say, well, that's not very good, but the point is that... everything else in this country is run on the principle of what you might call parliamentary government. In other words, you have a committee to run it. You don't just have a person running anything. And the whole thing of having a mayor is one person.
One person can be easily manipulated, potentially. Right. They could be pliable. They could be a psychopath.
There's no checks and balances involved. Yeah?
It's very dangerous, but this is the US way. This is the American way, isn't it? Anyway, let's have a listen now to the Lib Dem councillor, Alex Hartley, who is talking here about what is going to be, I think, a very interesting debate, and I'll see if I can get down there for full council at the council house, as we used to call it, on Tuesday the 7th of December for a decision about whether or not to have a referendum to boot out the mayor, to get back the old system.
My name is Councillor Alex Hartley. I'm the Liberal Democrat councillor for Hartley and Harvey. So what we're doing is we're putting down a motion that will be going to full council on the 7th of December. Now, this is a statutory motion, which means that even if the mayor goes against it, if it's passed by a majority of councillors, it will mean there will be a binding referendum on a choice of governance for Bristol City Council moving forward. So the two options that will be part of that referendum will be keeping the mayoral model as we have it now, or moving to the committee system, which is a much fairer and more proportional way of having power, and that would remove the role of an elected Bristol mayor. We feel that an elected Bristol mayor is no longer needed, basically because we have the West of England Combined Authority mayor. We have that figurehead as such that most of the people who wanted a Bristol mayor in the first place were after. But it also means that decisions are happening at the council level are much fairer. The mayor only controls a third of the chamber, but based on the current situation, he has all the power on everything apart from licensing and planning. And fundamentally, we've seen a very autocratic mayor for the last 5 years. But the system itself is wrong. It's not about the individual. It's about the system. For one person to be able to overturn the majority will of elected councillors is just wrong. Like we saw on the arena, where it was almost unanimous for Bristol City councillors voting to have it in the city centre, and a few days later, Mayor Rees decided, no, it's going to go up to South Gloucestershire, and that's now what's happening. And that's an incredibly unfortunate situation we find ourselves in. Other people have compared it to an elected dictatorship, which is something that, unfortunately, we do seem to have. We've got the spending £110,000 of public money for the mayor to be able to snoop on people's social media to see what they're saying about him and things like that. So, fundamentally, it's wrong, it's costing us a fortune, and we need to be able to give the people of Bristol a chance to have their say. We've seen a lot of support for the idea of scrapping Bristol mayor, and we think it's only fair that the people get a vote on it.
Yes, but you stood a candidate, didn't you, in the mayoral election, who said that they would abolish their own job, and they lost.
Yeah. Yes, they did. But there was different candidates from different parties that promised the same thing, and unfortunately, other political ideas rose up the agenda. It was a case, but the Tory candidate was also running out on the same platform, and the Greens' national party policy and local policy is to scrap the role of Bristol Mayor. So between the three parties, we actually got something like 67% of the vote.
Interesting, though, because the Greens are not really like that to do that in Bristol. They may actually get the mayor position at the next vote, so they're not going to scrap themselves. And I don't think Sandy Hoare Riven was going to do that as a Green candidate.
Perhaps not Sandy himself, but the Green Party has said to us that they'll be backing our motion. And now they're not whips, so it might not be all of their members, but certainly the leadership and all the Green councillors that I've spoken to have said they would much prefer a committee system because it's a lot fairer and allows backbench councillors to have their voice heard about their local communities. Because fundamentally, one man or woman who's mayor cannot know everything that needs to be known to run the entirety of a city. But disseminating that option out to all councillors would give us a much greater and more democratic system.
Okay, this is a kind of an American system, isn't it? I don't know. We seem to get a lot of American stuff over here. We're even getting American reporters on the BBC these days. Do you think is that what they're trying to do, to sort of mimic what's been going on in big US cities?
Yeah, I think this idea of having one point of contact and one person that can speak for the city is something that's very big in America. They're very fond of the strong executive. But the problem we've seen from that strong executive is there's no one there that's able to challenge. And if something's going wrong, because the mayor's surrounded by yes men, nothing's happening about it until we see ridiculous situations like the 50 million that's been wasted on Bristol Energy, thousands, millions wasted on the arena, etc. So we're seeing all of this levels of wastage because all the power is in just one person's hands. If that was devolved down, then local people will be able to have more of an impact in what happens in their communities, whilst also allowing greater scrutiny of all decisions.
Well, finally, Alex, you're in Hot Wales. How's it all going with this whole so-called Western Harbour project? Because I know a lot of local people are not happy about bulldozers moving in and having massive housing estates put in there with hardly any green space.
No, it's been a very contentious issue, and once again, it falls back to how the mayoral system works. The mayor decided that he wanted to open up Cumberland Basin for development and just rode roughshod over the local community. He kept the potential ideas that were on the table secret until the last possible minute, and the consultation was widely derided as a complete failure, hence why we're now seeing a new engagement process. So I'm hopeful that the new engagement process will listen to locals' concerns, but we're already seeing some strange tactics from the council in terms of how they're pursuing this engagement process, focusing on other areas of the city, paying people to attend in other areas of the city, but not in Hot Wales, only running one session in the local area compared to running one up in Lawrence Western, Eastern, etc. So the local community is still very angry about this. The vast majority of people I've spoken to are open to some development, but it's a case of making sure that it works for local people.
Alex Hartley, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Tony.